Keefe D is all over the headlines after getting booked for Tupac's murder almost 30 years later. But most people have no idea how crazy his story really is. So today we're breaking down how he went from playing basketball with Suge Knight and chilling with Eazy-E to working with Pablo Escobar and becoming one of the biggest drug lords in rap history. These days,
What? That is wow. Just wow. This is all a skit. This is wow.
Compton, California is one of the most notorious hoods in America. The Bloods, Crips, and other sets turned the city into a war zone, and it's been one of the deadliest places on the West Coast for decades. But back in the day, everything was different. Keefe D was born in Watts, California, but his family moved to Compton when he was a kid.
Shout out to everybody that's from Watson. I got a lot of family over there. So comment down below if you from there.
His dad and uncle went down to Tijuana, Mexico to bet on horse races, and Keefe's dad hit it big and came up with $50K in his pocket, which is like winning $500,000 today. Keefe's parents decided to move to Compton in 1965 because back then it was a nice place. Everything was cool for a few years, but then the city started to change. Keefe said that the gang started moving in the area, and that's when all the white people ran away. Their family was huge, and Keefe had 11 siblings living under the same roof. Their parents couldn't keep an eye on all of them, and Keefe got active in the streets at a young age. He said the first time he ran into some gangsters was around 75 when he was 9 years old and they jumped him outside a corner store. Back in the day, Keefe was focused on sports and wanted to make it out of the trenches that way. He even played football with Suge Knight back then, but both of them ended up hustling in the trenches. When he was around 12, Keefe started repping the Southside Crips and was getting into fights with their main ops, the Eastside Bloods. He told DJ Vlad that back then, they were just throwing hands and nobody was getting shot up, but it didn't take long for that to change.
Still to this day, I might have, I'm just saying, but I couldn't imagine me doing that, chasing guys down and punching up on them. I couldn't do that. I love being in the house, man. But hey, for anybody that does that, man, do what you do, man. Just don't bring it around me.
A lot of street dudes ends up moving weight to get a little money on the side. But the story of how Keefe broke into the drug game is wild. He used to move a little weed in high school and even sold it to his baseball coach. One day when the coach came to re-up with Keefe, he brought some coke with him and told Keefe to flip it. That's when everything changed for Keefe. After he sold the coke, he realized how much money he could rack up pushing weight, and that's when he went full-time with it. He ended up catching a couple of cases as a teenager, but when he turned 20, Keefe got wrapped up in his first serious charge. Keefe already had some legal drama going on with the drug charges, but the situation he got locked up for was way crazier. One day he was stopped on the block, sitting in his whip when some ops rolled up and put hands on him. They busted his jaw and gave him a concussion, but Keefe wasn't gonna just let them get away with it. He drove to his house, got a rifle with 2 clips and a pistol, then slid into ops territory to find the dudes who did it. Keefe spotted the main dude outside his house, and the op ran inside before Keefe could hit him up. That's when Keefe upped his rifle and dumped both clips into the crib. He wasn't finished yet though. He kept sliding through the hood and spotted the op's brother too and chased him down. The dude put his hands up and Keefe could have killed him right there, but instead he just smacked him with his gun and let his homie stomp him out. The cops wrapped Keefe's drug and assault charges all together and hit him with 4 years in prison. Going inside didn't make him want to get out of the streets though. It just made Keefe want to learn how to move smarter and get deeper in the game. He told DJ Vlad that prison was his gladiator school, and back then only real criminals were locked up there. Keefe said there weren't nearly as many prisons around when he got locked up, and the courts only sent people inside that they knew were really dangerous. Keefe was only locked up for 4 years, but 13 dudes were murdered while he was inside. By the time he got out, crack had taken over the streets and made everything more deadly. The Bloods and Crips were always fighting for territory, and bodies were dropping on both sides almost every day. Back then, Keefe was pushing 3 to 5 kilos of cocaine at a time and had to go all over the city to find the weight. He was working with different plugs, trying to get enough product to flip, and moving around like that is how you end up getting robbed or killed. But when someone he was cool with in the coke game linked Keefe up with a new plug, he took everything to a crazy level. Pablo Escobar is the most famous drug lord of all time. He ran the Medellin cartel out of Colombia and became known as the king of cocaine. By the time he died in '93, Escobar had made around $70 billion in the drug game, and Keefe D was directly involved with that. A dude Keefe knew linked him up with a Colombian plug, and it turns out that it was one of Escobar's soldiers. The first time Keefe went to pick up, he was expecting 5 to 10 kilos, but the plug handed him 140 kilos and didn't even make Keefe pay. Moving that much weight in Compton wasn't even possible, so Keefe had to expand and start running drugs all over the country. Ice Cube broke it all down on the track My Summer Vacation and rapped, In LA, everybody and their mama sell dope. They trying to stop it. So what the fuck can I do to make a profit? Catch a flight to St. Louis? That's cool, cause nobody knew us. We stepped off the plane, 4 gangbangers, professional crack slangers. And it's better than slanging in the valley. Triple the profit, making more than I did in Cali. Keefe was never into the rap game, but he had known Eazy-E for years. Eazy repped the Kelly Park, Compton Crips, and they were clicked up with the South Side.
Better than Tupac. I'm just saying, that's my favorite rapper. Favorite old school rapper of all time.
Keefe said they used to cook up at Eazy's mom's crib back in the day, and they'd all listen to Eazy spit bars. Back then, Keefe said Eazy was horrible on the mic, but he stayed on the grind and eventually became one of the hottest rappers in the world. After Diddy started Bad Boy Records, Keefe ended up meeting him at a music video. Diddy needed a lowrider for Usher's first music video, so he hit up Keefe D and used his whip. That's when Keefe met Diddy's homie Zip, and a few years later, he's the one who gave Keefe the gun that killed Tupac. Keefe is facing trial for shooting Tupac right now, but the situation didn't start with him. The issues with Diddy and Suge started after Suge dissed Diddy at the 95 Source Awards in front of the entire industry. Before that, Death Row and Bad Boy was cool, but Suge sparked a beef that night that ended with Pac, Biggie, and a lot of other dudes dying. Tupac signed with Death Row after Suge bailed him out of jail, and when he hit the booth, he came out swinging. He dropped a track, hit him up, and rapped, "First off, fuck your bitch and the clique you claim. West Side when we ride, come equipped with game. You claim to be a player, but I fucked your wife. We bust on Bad Boys, niggas fuck for life. Then, fuck Biggie, fuck Bad Boy as a staff, record label, and as a motherfucking crew. And if you want to be down with Bad Boy, then fuck you too. And you niggas can't feel it, we the realest. Fuck them, we Bad Boy killers." It was one of the craziest diss tracks of all time, and it's allegedly why Diddy put $1 million bag on Suge and Pac's heads. Not long after Suge sparked the beef, his homie Big Jake was allegedly murdered by one of Diddy's friends when their crews ran into each other in Atlanta. Pac made the beef go viral and had the whole world watching, but there was way more going on in the streets that rap fans had no idea about. A few weeks before Pac was killed, there was a situation going down in California that set everything off. One of Keefe's little homies was at the Lakewood Mall when a dude named Trey and a few other Death Row guys tried to press him. Trey and his homies thought they caught the dude solo, but then some other Southside Crips rolled up and started putting hands on him. One of the Southside Crips who was there that day was Keefe's nephew, Orlando Anderson, and he's the real reason why Pac ended up dying in Vegas less than.
See, I think he's the one that did it though, but that's just my personal opinion though. R.I.P. to Pop. I said Pop. R.I.P. to Tupac.
A month later, Pac, Suge, and a bunch of other Death Row dudes were in Vegas for a Mike Tyson fight. At the same time, Keefe and a bunch of his Crip homies were there for the same thing. Suge and Keefe had known each other since they were kids and had always been cool with each other, even though Keefe was a Crip and Suge repped the Bloods. And the day before Pac died, Keefe said he saw Suge in front of the hotel and they shook hands. Anderson was allegedly a massive fan of Tupac and owned every project he dropped. Rumors say he went to Vegas with Keefe and the other Crips just to see him. But what he didn't know is that Trey was with Death Row that night. After the Tyson fight, Trey spotted Anderson and pointed him out to Pac as one of the dudes who snatched his chain. That's when Pac walked up and threw the first punch. The rest of the Death Row crew jumped in to stomp Anderson out. Then they all ran off after hotel security rushed in to break it up. After he got jumped, Anderson linked back up with Keefe and the other Southside dudes and told him what happened. Keefe and his homies weren't strapped up that night, but that's when Diddy's homie Zip told him about some guns he had stashed in his whip. He passed Keefe a Glock, and that's when they went hunting for Tupac. At first, they went to Suge's nightclub called Club 662 and waited for him in the parking lot. The plan was to catch him when they pulled up, but after waiting for about half an hour, Keefe, Orlando, and 2 other Crips hit the road looking for Suge and Pac. There's a good chance they would have never found Pac and Suge if it wasn't for a couple of fans that saw him first. A car full of women saw Pac and started screaming, and that's when Pac started hanging out the sunroof. Keefe spotted him immediately, and the Crips busted a U-turn and pulled up next to Pac's whip. Keefe passed the Glock to the back seat because he didn't have a clear shot, and that's when Anderson allegedly leaned out the window and killed Pac. There was another car full of Death Row goons right behind Pac and Suge's whip, and they chased the Crips down and started letting off shots. The Crips got away without getting hit, but Pac tragically died from the gunshots a few days later. After it went down, Keefe and the other Crips went back to Compton, and that's when everything really popped off. Reggie Wright Jr. was the head of death row security back then, and his dad, Reggie Wright Sr., was actually a cop in Compton. Right after Pac died, Reggie Wright Sr. pulled up on Keefe and his homies and started sending death threats if anything happened to his son. The Bloods and Crips were already at each other's throats in Compton, but Pac's death took everything to the next level. In the first 10 days after he died, there were 11 shootings in Compton, and 3 more people were left dead in the streets. Suge allegedly put $100K on Keefe's head, and that's when Keefe sent out one of his white homies to ambush Suge and take him out.
You sent one of them dressed up in a UPS outfit to Suge's studio?
Yeah.
And I guess if Suge had opened the door, they would have killed Suge.
Zip came out to California and was supposed to give Keefe and the other Crips $500,000 for killing Tupac. And while he was there, Diddy allegedly called and asked, "Was that us?"
You guys met up with Zip in LA.
At Wingstop.
At Wingstop.
Yeah.
You said that Puffy called and said, "Was that us?" And you didn't say nothing.
I didn't say nothing. Yeah, you're right.
Zip never gave him the money though, and Keefe claims the FBI told him Zip pocketed the cash and used it to open a nightclub.
Apparently, there was supposed to be $1 million that Zip was supposed to bring back, but he ended up keeping the money and buying a nightclub with it.
That's what the FBI said.
Killing Tupac didn't just cause a whole new wave of violence in Compton, it also put Keefe in the spotlight and made his drug empire fall apart overnight. After the Colombians heard how much heat was on the Southside Crips, they dipped out and stopped supplying them with cocaine. Keefe had problems on the inside too. He claims that 18 dudes in the crew flipped and started helping the cops, and that's how he ended up facing life in prison on drug charges. And while he was locked up fighting the case, Keefe suffered 2 major losses back to back. One morning while he was sitting in his cell, the guards came in and broke the news that Keefe's grandmother had passed away. Dealing with that was tough, but just a few hours later, he got even worse news. His nephew Orlando Anderson had been shot and killed. According to the cops who worked on the case, this is how it went down. Anderson had been up drinking all night with a homie after he found out about his great-grandma dying. They went down the block later on to grab some food, and that's when Anderson spotted a dude from a set called Corner Pocket who owed Keefe a few racks over some cocaine. Anderson went up and pressed the dude over the money, and that's when a couple more Corner Pocket affiliates walked up. Anderson pulled his gun and shot one of the dudes. Then the other side busted back and hit him in the chest. After Anderson dropped his gun, his homie picked it up and shot another Corner Pocket dude while they were running off. When all the smoke cleared, Anderson and 2 of the other Corner Pocket dudes were all dead. Keefe lost 2 family members, had his own crew flipping on him, and was looking at life in prison if he took the case to trial and it went the wrong way. The FBI had over 100 agents working against the Southside Crips, and there was no way Keefe was going to skate on the charges. He claims that the feds actually offered him $500,000 to become an informant and help take down other dealers, but Keefe decided not to be a rat and work with the FBI. Instead, he made a deal to tell him everything about the night Tupac died in exchange for getting the drug charges dropped. Without him speaking about it, nobody would have ever found out the truth, but it turns out there's even more to the story than what he claimed. In 2018, Keefe thought he was going to die from cancer and decided to let everyone know what went down in Vegas that night. He wrote a book about it and started doing interviews, and that's what led to him getting booked for Tupac's murder 27 years after it went down. A couple of years ago, rumors were flying that the cops were working on the Tupac case again, and Reggie Wright Jr. backed him up and said Keefe was scared.
I bet Keefe Devin's having the runs for the last 2 weeks. Because yeah, they are knocking on doors and there's some activity.
Keefe already admitted he was involved with Pac's death, but his deal with the cops gave him immunity from being charged. What got him into trouble though is that if anything he told him back then turned out to be a lie, he could still face charges. In 2023, the police raided Keefe's house and brought out all kinds of evidence that nobody else has ever seen. It's clear they already had something on him though, because the judge wouldn't grant a warrant for them to raid the crib over nothing. Even after Keefe said he was given the whole story, witnesses who were there when Pac got killed have a different version of what went down. In one of his interviews with vladtv, DJ Vlad brought up one of the witness statements and Keefe got pressed about it immediately.
What witnesses were saying, though, was that when they saw the arm stick out the window and do the shooting, it wasn't a skinny arm. It was a bulky, hefty-looking arm.
Well, I was in the passenger seat.
I'm not saying it's you. I'm saying that there's 4 people in the car, but they said it wasn't a skinny arm that stuck his hand out the window.
Who the witness?
Can't say.
Okay, they lying?
Now, Keefe's officially charged with Tupac's murder and is supposed to be going to trial, but there's still a chance he'll get another plea deal if he helps the police. Ever since Pac died, there were rumors that Diddy was involved with the hit, but he always called cap on it and said the rumors were ridiculous. But if Keefe really did have conversations about killing Suge and Pac with him, Diddy could end up going down over the situation too. Keefe D went from selling bags of weed to moving kilos with Escobar's cartel and becoming one of the most powerful gangsters on the West Coast. Linking up with Diddy in the music industry could have turned all his money legit, but instead he stayed in the streets and allegedly murdered a legend over a beef that Diddy helped start. Diddy has always refused to talk about Pac's death in interviews, but if the police come knocking at his door like they did with Keefe, it's gonna be a different story. He's the one who allegedly put $1 million on Suge and Pac's head, and if the cops found any evidence to prove it when they raided Keefe's crib, then there's no telling what's gonna happen next.